I think it's got some really cool stuff. It's by Maureen Saint Germain. I started to do a mind map of it with a lot of details, but I didn't get through all of them. So I'm just going to go through the book. And you don't have to necessarily have read the book, but what she talks about in here is how do you align yourself to the fifth dimension, which is the ascension. I don't know if you guys have heard that lately, that's the new word, is the ascension, as the earth is going through this emotional cleanse, if you will. The vibrations are changing for earth. Some people also believe that the earth is actually going to energetically split into two. Because of all the chaos and everything happening, the ascension people will actually split into two different dimensions of earth. I don't know how that's going to happen. There are some things in this book that really stretched my thought when I was reading it. Some of the things, such as, there's multiple versions of you, and it could be on this earth. And at that point, I had a little bit of a harder time. But then when I took the Dolores Cannon's past life regression healing, it's the quantum QHHT, it's quantum healing hypnosis therapy. So what she does in there is actually go back to your past life and heal some of the issues that you may be struggling with. It doesn't necessarily even have to be past lives. It could be something that you've dealt with in your childhood or something like that too. One of the things that she talks about in here is the time. So the concept of time, and the best way to be able to access that is the centeredness of just being in the now and ability to focus on inwards and not worry about time, the past or the future, and just focus on how you're feeling and how you can connect to God, basically. They call it the divine matrix. So whatever you want to call it. That's the process. So that was the one that I had a little bit of a challenge, but I'll just go through. You guys can listen, and I'll go through some of the things that I found very, very cool and interesting. So there's basically two ways you can get yourself into the fifth dimension, and people are probably wondering, what is the fifth dimension? A fifth dimension is actually a way of being. It's not like you travel somewhere or go somewhere else, but you become a fifth dimensional being by vibration, the way that you kind of focus in and out of connecting to God. So your vibration is different. So there's the fourth dimension, which has a lot of emotions, which we'll go over all the different dimensions. But so the fourth dimension is where you're more reactive. And the fifth dimension is your kind of, I like to call it, from an elevated position where you can see things with a different perspective. And it's usually the loving, no judgment, just allowing things to happen and not wishing something would be one way or another, but that there's a purpose for everything that's happening. So there's two steps. The first way of you elevating to the fifth dimension or being in the fifth dimension is a new way of thinking and a new way of being. So again, we talked about the vibration that you become. I don't know if you guys have seen, there is the Dr. Quantum. If you look on YouTube, there's a really cool Dr. Quantum cartoon, actually, where he talks about, there's a two-dimensional being, and it's a ball, and she's afraid of becoming a three-dimensional. In our case, it'd be the fifth dimensional. And she says, well, what's going to happen to me if I become a third dimensional? What will, I will never be a two-dimensional person. And then once she becomes this three-dimensional ball, she's like, I never knew, and she can see all the two-dimensional world. So in the fifth dimension, I like to kind of relate to that. So you kind of elevate from it, and you see things a little bit differently. I shouldn't say a little bit, but you learn to look at things differently. So if somebody's really bugging you, you kind of elevate above from it because you don't understand that person's history, what's happened to them, their way of being. But the minute you let them or allow them to have impact on you, so if they're picking on you, or if they're saying negative things or whatever, the minute you allow them to affect you, you're giving up your own power. So that's one of the things that I really, I don't remember if it was in this book or not, but that's something I think is really helpful for people. If you do allow other people to impact you physically, emotionally, mentally, then you're really giving up your power. So it's all about holding on to your power and then reflecting back. And sometimes things do hurt us in our heart. But in this book, it kind of talks about you focus in and you notice your feelings. And you're okay feeling those feelings because you're human, but not let it anchor. I like to call it anchor. Because the minute you allow emotions to anchor in, it becomes a point in your past. And then those are like anchors, and they're, it's hard to move forward into the future when you have anchors kind of pulling you back. So if there are bad emotions or bad energies, bad events, and it doesn't necessarily have to be conscious ones, but if there are things that you had a hard time dealing with when you were a kid and you never shared it with anyone, for example, that's another anchor. And that anchor could manifest itself in multitude of layers. So it could be emotional, physical, mental, right? There's an energetic level that it kind of gets entrapped in, and it can move from those layers. So you can use different techniques, like QHHT is one technique. You can use NLP, you can use hypnosis, but even just meditation and going back and understanding when the first time, you felt something, or if there are things that really bother you or things that you've said, etc., you can actually go back and release that energy. So she talks about how important that is, understanding the time. Time is like, we look at time like this, right? It's linear. But what a lot of spiritualists say is like you can bend time. So the minute you can collapse it on top of each other, and you can access the past and the future right here. You can collapse it. So that's a concept that's hard, but if you understand NLP, we have a timeline therapy in there. You can actually go back energetically and shift your perception of a specific event in the history. For example, if you were abused as a child, for example, and something happened, and whether you're conscious or unconscious of it, under hypnosis, you can figure those things out, because if you have specific ailments, especially things that seem to occur all the time in your life, or there's a physical ailment that just won't go away, you can go back and say, okay, I'm going to meditate on it. When was the first time I noticed that? And then go back in, and what is the lesson I need to learn from it? Why does it keep happening? And that's your way of connecting to the fifth dimension, or for the divine spirits to give you guidance. So that's kind of talking about the fifth dimension. They talk about your higher and lower self. So your lower self is the 3D, which is, us kind of here. And then the higher self is the more spiritual self. So your lower self is more on the ego and reactive. This is when you start to react. And we're all, we all sink back into our third dimensional body, and we react to things, especially if we hear something or if we see something that emotionally impacts us. We kind of get sunk back in. And then the higher is the proactive, which is, kind of looking at it from a God's view, if you will. You kind of elevate from it, because God doesn't judge, right? God has put everybody on this earth for a specific reason. Even though we might think, somebody's evil or they shouldn't be doing that, whatever, we don't know the overall purpose of what that event or person is going to lead to. But at the same time, you have the choice to make your future. You have the choice to create your own future. And we don't spend enough time creating that for ourselves. We're always reacting to the world. What's the next thing we need to focus on, instead of focusing on the things that we do want and focusing on planting those seeds into the quantum field. And we talked about that in our last meeting with the moon. So let's talk about, so she talks about, how it's merging, the science and the spirituality is merging. And December 21st, 2012 marked an completion of the great mind's cycle and beginning of the new world age. So a lot of people say, this is the time for the women leading as spiritual leader, but it's actually about feminine power, right? It's not just about women, but it's the feminine, the caring, the nurturing. The earth is going to cleanse itself. More people are going to be emotionally sensitive to things that are happening around the world. So it's that feminine power that's coming through, and we like to call it like the Mother Nature. Mother Nature, or Earth, Mother Earth knows what it needs to go through. There's some really good, I think, Gaia episodes on, what's happening with our weather, the global warming, all that stuff. But if you really look at the patterns that they've looked at the last, I think, 20,000 years or something, or 200,000 years, whatever it may be, it's with Greg Braden. You can see there that everything has a cycle, and everything is going through those cycles. Now, whether we think things are happening differently this time, when you look at the overall cycles of things, you can see certain adjustments. So there's always reasons of why things are happening. But it's interesting to see, if you understand those patterns, and everything has a vibration or a pattern, just like our bodies go through a pattern, which is the body organ clock. The earth goes through a pattern, the moon goes through a pattern, and all of those are impacting us, all of those energies. So waking up to the fifth dimension. So again, that was like becoming more aware of your higher self and just being more intuitive. So you're going to receive information, and you're going to know answers to things before they even happen. Or you're going to ask about something, and I like to do this at night. If you implant a question, so, show me a sign if X, Y, and Z is right, or show me a sign about something, whatever it may be. And then waking up and saying, I'm open to receive those signs and be aware that I'm going to notice those signs. And sure enough, you're going to see things popping, and you're going to be able to see those things. In NLP, we call it the reticular activation. So you program your mind to understand how you can notice those things, right? So if you're looking to buy a new car, let's like a Jeep, now you notice all the other Jeeps. It's the same thing with when you put questions out there. The divine spirits will put answers to you. You just have to be open and aware to be able to notice them, right? So waking up in the fifth dimension, it talks about, so I'm on chapter 1 right now, so I'll go through them a little bit faster. But this is a really good chapter, because it talks about how you want to ground yourself, because we're so taken away from Mother Earth. Even when we're walking in the cities and stuff, there's pipes and electricity and everything moving under the ground. So we never get a chance to really tune into the ground, which is the 7.83 hertz, right? The earth has its own frequency, its own pulse, and we're not grounding ourselves. Now you can buy grounding pads, etc., and then, dig it outside your window and ground yourself. And that's actually one of the things, if you guys have read some of those books, it helps people with stopping snoring. It helps people that have ailments. It just calms your body. It connects you with the earth. And it's literally just a wire that you can, hook up to a pad or to your bed. Basically, you just lay on this mat, and it's just a grounding frequency. So it allows your body just to ground itself, because if you really think about all the things that we're being exposed to, I mean, I got lights right now going on. I got cell phone and iPad. All, the Wi-Fi router is going and everything. If you look outside, we got everything. Electromagnetic fields flying everywhere in and through us. So it's our body's way of just connecting. We're just not connecting. Even the shoes that we're wearing, right? Even when we go hiking, we think we're connecting, but the shoes that we're wearing are plastic, and they're not allowing us to connect with the earth. So it's good to kind of sit down or just be with the nature. They even have shoes now that help you ground. But grounding is one way, because once you ground yourself, you can feel and release some of those energies. Now, it also talks about you can do this mentally. If you're stuck in the city and, you live in an apartment, you have no way of connecting, you can also do this spiritually, just by visualizing the pranic tube and connecting to the earth, and you pull those energies, pull them up, and then really receive the energies from, you know, God or divine matrix, and pull it down so that it becomes, and it pulsates through you, balances you out. Some of these things I'm just talking about the way that I visualize, but she just talks about basically grounding, and then she talks about waking up. And AJ, if you can just mute yourself so we don't hear the, thank you. Okay, let's see, wake yourself abruptly. So it talks about how you can get your body basically in sync. And we talked about, you know, getting in tune with the Earth's energies and the moon energies, but there's also circadian rhythms, there's the organ clock, etc. If you start to notice those things that are happening within your body and how your body is reacting to those things, you'll notice a lot of this. She talks about waking up abruptly. You know, if you go to sleep, your spirit is actually, that's when, I believe, that's when your spirit kind of leaves and goes to the divine matrix, uploads, downloads information. You know, that's why if you ask questions before you go to sleep, you can wake up with answers, because then your spirit kind of goes and searches for the answers, or the divine spirits will push the answers through. But during that time, you really don't want to abruptly wake up. So if you have you know, alarm clocks that go off at 5 o'clock or whatever, you need to give yourself enough time to allow that sleep cycle to occur. So if you're doing that, you might want to figure out what time you should go to bed so that you're not waking up to an abrupt alarm. All right, so the physical rest is, you know, time away from your body. So she talks about that. So changing your perception, right? The first thing is changing your perception of what's possible. And I love reading books like this where it kind of stretches my mind, because just the concept of there could be multiple versions of me or multiple versions of my soul here was a concept where I'm like, oh, wait, you know, there's multiple versions of me that could be in different races and different ethnicities, different language speaking, all that stuff. It's an interesting concept. The Dolores Cannon, I'm just going to kind of go off on this, but Dolores Cannon, there was one guy that kind of talked about when he went and did his past life regression, he could see, you know, when he was coming into the earth, he split into eight versions of himself, because he was there to do a specific service. So it was interesting because he had actually seen himself do that, and that needed to be done in different locations, etc. So there's some interesting ways of looking at that. You know, if there's multiple versions and you came here for a specific purpose, it could be that you're not just here with this family or with this nationality, for example, but you could be in other nations and stuff. All right, so changing your perception of what is possible. The belief systems or behaviors that are based on our historical experiences and not what is possible. So once you change your concept of what is possible, you've altered the course forever, not just for yourself, but for the course of humanity right along with it. So it's, again, changing of belief systems. I think a lot of things are happening right now that are being exposed. You know, this is the era of things that the truth is going to come out. If you guys believe in those crop circles, you know, the one that appeared that had the special message, I can't remember what it said exactly, but it was talking about how, you know, beware people with the false gifts, you know, all will be exposed, kind of a thing. So I think that is definitely coming through true, because a lot of things are trying to be exposed. And obviously there's going to be some struggles with people who want to control, you know, those people, and not want to deal with the fact that, you know, things are being exposed. People are going to be aware of things. So it's cool concept. So what can keep you out of fifth dimension? It's basically, you know, she talks about chemtrails, cell phones. There are beams of programming, you know, if you believe in all of that stuff. And then, of course, the media, right? What you choose to listen to, even the music that you listen to, the words, the things that you allow your mind to basically shape the belief systems. So it's a good practice to kind of, if you have a specific belief, believe in the total opposite, and then try to prove to yourself that what you had believed in was wrong. So that's a cool exercise to do. Or you know, if you have a belief system that you don't like something or you don't like someone, and then you flip and say, how can I learn to love this person? Or if I did love this person. It's just it's a weird experience to do that. But she kind of talks about that. She also talks about turning your router off every night so that you're not beaming, not to sleep with cell phones or any kind of electronics by your head, especially. But if they're on your body, you know, they're impacting your vibrations. So if people are stuck in a Faraday cage, and a lot of people that used to channel in the old days, they actually would put them in Faraday cages so that they wouldn't get any disruptions. So you can now buy Faraday like fabric that you can put over your bed so that you can totally block that stuff off. And then, you know, notice how you feel, because then it allows your body to actually heal much better, because it's not dealing with the intrusive electromagnetic fields that we're getting. So it also talks about replacing your old beliefs, right? If you ask who those beliefs that you believe in now came from, or where it came from, and what if they were wrong, right? What if, you know, what you've always been told is actually wrong? And we're discovering a lot of that with history now. You know, they're discovering new pyramids that completely shatters, you know, the old theories. They're doing stuff in space that are, you know, blowing up all the old theories. Even in science, right? We're discovering black holes, and we're discovering different things that they didn't believe in. You know, they would say, you know, the sound doesn't travel in space. Now they're finding out there's frequencies for each and every planet, you know, and there's specific sounds. So there's some really cool TV shows that educate people on that. But so it's interesting. Basically, what it's saying is you need to be aware of your environment, and not only how it impacts you emotionally, physically, mentally, but also spiritually. So when you can, if you can, just ground yourself and, you know, just to kind of align yourself. There was one thing that I highlighted. Gautama Buddha was asked by a visitor, "Are you God?" Right? And he replied, "No, I'm just awake." Right? So that's his way of kind of saying, I've kind of pulled myself out of the third dimension. I'm in the fifth dimension, understanding all this material stuff doesn't really, you know, make sense. Not that it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't give us what we think it does. So it's elevating out of it and seeing things with God's eyes, with your divine soul. You know, if you really think about that, we're each a piece of God. We're each a God for ourselves. We're the God for our body. If you really think about it, what are the messages? What are you doing? What are you doing as God to your body? What are you doing to connect to a higher divine God or beings? So again, it's getting into that routine. And how do you optimize it? Basically practicing discernment, non-judgment. You will no longer need to compartmentalize information into good or bad, okay? Or create any kind of comparisons. So this could be a lot of challenge if you listen to a lot of TV or news or radio, etc. It gets to be disappointing, I think, after a while, because, you know, it's either one side or the other, or they're both kind of attacking each other. But then if you elevate out of it and say, at least this is what I do, all of this is happening for a reason, one reason or another. And Mother Earth and the spirits are going to know what needs to come out of this to lead us to a better place. So I want to focus on, above all of this, what do we really want for Earth, for ourselves, for our children, for the future of this, you know, planet? What do we really want? And that if we focus on that versus everything else that's happening here, then we've put the seeds together, the thoughts together, and we can all elevate to that level. It doesn't matter. We don't need to know how that's going to happen or with whom or what's going to happen to make that happen. But we focus on the end result, and we let the universe kind of help and even that process out. At least that's the process that I go through. So she talks about, seeing the beauty in everything, just every little thing. Like we have new flowers that came this year. When you bless your garden and we give stuff to it, you notice how it responds to you. I had met an herbalist a long, long time ago at Lilydale, and he was talking about, if everybody focused on their yard and blessed their yard, the earth gives herbs and plants that are going to help nourish and cure the people that live in that home. So you'll see different things popping up, and you won't even know how that came about. But what do? We mulch everything down, we cut everything down, and we force grass or we force whatever we want to plant there, instead of allowing the earth to kind of say, okay, give us the herbs and the flowers and the plants that would benefit the family, because the earth feels the energy, right? Most of the time, the home has its own energy. The people that live in it have the energy, and the earth responds to that. So it's a really cool experience. We started this last year, and there was a new mushroom that grew when I was studying the mushrooms. Psilocybin was one thing, the magic mushrooms and the psychedelic effects on spiritual psychedelic effects. We were reading about that. And when I started reading, I ordered a couple of books. We had a mushroom, a turkey. I forget what it's called, turkey tail, a huge mushroom that appeared in front of our yard. I mean, out of the blue. So it was a really cool sign. Again, going back to God and asking for signs, etc. So that kind of appeared, and then we learned more about the mushrooms and how they grow, etc. So just being aware of your environment. What are you giving energy to? What are you giving thoughts to? So it's just looking at things a little bit different. Seeing the beauty in everything, gratitude and presence, right? Being grateful for everything. Develop your connection with your higher self. So she has a 6-week challenge. Let me see. Only checking when you're learning. So she has a 6-week challenge here. So you select a time frame, and then you only ask yes or no questions, no open-ended questions, and ask unimportant, insignificant questions for the things that you don't really care about. And then whatever answers that you tune into or the things that pop into your mind, you follow through with them. So a lot of times, our little mind, our conscious mind will say, you're not hearing that. That's not right. That's me talking or whatever. It doesn't allow us to connect because it wants us to kind of be on the third dimension and experience the third dimension. It wants to protect us from the environment. I mean, it's feeding the ego, basically. Your conscious mind is just making sure that you're going to be safe on the third environment, on the third dimension. So you always follow through. Don't ask important questions. Don't ask predictive questions, such as, will the light change before I get there, or something like that. So you do this for like 6 weeks. You just tune in, you ask questions, and you follow through with your instincts. And that, again, it's feeding to it, right? If the divine spirits are giving you questions and messages and you don't follow through with it, then they're probably not going to say, okay, well, he's not listening, right? But the minute you follow through, the minute you give energy, the minute you are grateful for the signs and the energies and the messages that are coming through, the more solid that line becomes. And it's like a trail. The more you use that trail, the path is going to be created. So you want to be able to create that consciousness and unconscious or superconscious connection. So I know we have other people, and I have you guys muted. I can unmute you guys in a little bit, but you can mute yourself. So I'm going to do that. Dara, I'm going to unmute you. And Dalia, I'm going to unmute you guys. So if you wanted to talk, you can unmute yourself to have any kind of feedback. All right. The other thing, and we did this a couple of years ago with the meetup, is asking for signs, bodily signs. So some people will be able to know things. Some people will see things. Some people will get like goosebumps in the back of their necks or in their arms or tingling in their legs, etc. Whatever that kind of communication is, the only way you can really notice that is if you sit still and ask for that. Ask for, allow me to notice with my mind, body, and spirit how you're communicating to me. And you can ask for that to be expanded too. So for example, if you always feel a tingly sensation, or if there's certain feeling that you feel, maybe you want to focus on that, or you want to ask for more expanded awareness. So those are some things that she talk about. So your higher self, or your spirit self, or your God self, however you want to call it, it's always there. It's waiting for you to connect to it. It's there for answering questions, helping you get through things. It's, again, if you pray every night, you know, if you ask for questions, if you allow your body to tune in and out, to be able to communicate or connect. Now, the way that I feel it is your body almost feels like it's half asleep, half not. So at night and during the morning, you'll be able to feel those the most, because I think that's when the transition occurs. So you can tap into that and ease into that. And even if you just wake up, you can go back in and you can give your, you know, prayers or a gratefulness, and ask for signs, or ask for healing, ask for direction, whatever it is that you're looking for. It's a really good time to do that. So it talks about the other things that you can use, like Epsom salt will draw negative energy. So if you have a bad day, or if you have headaches, etc., or you feel like you're not carrying the right energy in your body, Epsom salt will pull that out. Same thing with ocean water, right? When we go into the ocean, we feel so relaxed, and it's we're grounding on the beach first of all, and then the ocean cleanses. It also has a lot of minerals and, you know, iodine, etc., that kind of helps us too. But Epsom salt baths, she talks about that. Anything that blocks the EMF is really good. And then she has some things to learn here, some mantras. So she says, you know, give clear intention as you drift off to sleep. So I'm going to just read one to you guys real quick. Dear God, angels, and guides, I request to attend the most evolved place I may move to with my consciousness for the purpose of clarity about my mission, my purpose, and service. Let me learn and understand better what I need to know, learn, and be to achieve my fullest potential. Assist me in any upgrades that may be possible. Thank you. Amen. So, you know, you ask and you follow through, right? So if they do send you signs, make sure you acknowledge and you say, I'm grateful, I realize that's a sign. And whatever that sign was for, take action towards it. So make it your purpose to follow through on ideas, actions, and thoughts to which we are attracted. So it talks about how, you know, you'll be drawn to certain things. Like I'll go to a bookstore and immediately there'll be either a book that falls through, or I'll run into a book, or something will attract me to something. And it could be, you know, doing other things too. Maybe it's crystals, you're looking at crystals, or you're looking online, all of a sudden something pops up. So, you know, noticing those things and following through if you can, that's a good thing. So she talks about never preaching to people, never, you know, pushing things to people. But, you know, if people ask you about your belief systems or ideas, like we did last weekend, we had somebody that asked us about it. And, you know, I was flat out, I talked about what I believe in. And sure enough, even though he had first said he was religious, or not religious, but he goes to church, etc., he also confirmed that he believes in the spiritual aspect of all of this. So she talks about, you know, never push ideas to people, because people who are ascending, who are vibrating like you, will always find you, right? It's the law of attraction. They'll find how you're vibrating. And if you decide to change the way you are, the way that you're being, or the way you're thinking, you may see that your friends are disappearing, right? Now, the people that are not vibrating at the same level of you may disappear out of your life, which is okay, because you're going to be able to attract newer people that are more in line with your vibration. And, you know, we call those the ascenders, the ascension people. So it talks about, you know, anyone can do this, the waves of love. You know, you can choose to send that love to everybody, and just vibrate, just by vibrating that love. And that starts with loving yourself and understanding, you know, you have trillions of cells in your body that are growing and dying every month, right? Tissues and things, you know, bones. So if you really think about, you know, where do you start? You start with being the God to your body. You start loving your body for whatever it is, and everything that it's giving you, right? How do you treat it? How do you treat it? What do you say to it? What are your thoughts? You know, do you look in the mirror and say, you know, we all struggle with this, right? I wish I was this, I wish I was that, versus I'm so grateful that I have this. I'm so grateful that I have that. So again, it's looking at things positive versus negative, things you do have, things you don't have. So it's being grateful for everything that you do have, because then you vibrate that energy out instead of the lack of. So how we process information. So she talks about the Akashic records. For those people who don't know about Akashic records, it's basically a huge cloud of information that about everything that we possibly want to know, including past and future potential outcomes of, you know, obviously different futures. So in this book, she actually talks about you create different versions of the future the minute you make a decision, which I think I'm going to come back to, so I'm not going to go into it right now. But there's just multiple versions of reality basically happening. And some people can tap into a reality where, you know, if you're battling a disease, when you tap into a dimension where you don't have that disease, and you pull that information, or you become that vibration, you become that option, and you leave the one that is struggling right now. So there are things that people say, you know, I forget the name of the books, and some people have like techniques of doing this. But it's basically understanding, you know, those ailments that you're dealing with are anchors, and you need to figure out what those anchors are, or spend the time to energetically cleanse those out of your mind, body, spirit, and energetic field, basically, so that you can move forward or ascend to a higher vibrational being. So, so sometimes things happen, right? Sometimes there's chaos. Sometimes things happen that don't make sense, or things are happening to you that you can't quite understand. Instead of judging it or getting upset over it or having emotions about it, she says, ask what's going on. What is the purpose of this? And reveal this to me. But ask, you know, why can't I find my keys? Or why did this happen? Why did I, you know, not succeed in this? What is it leading me to? And allow that question to come as an answer. So she talks about, you know, missing keys. She's like, I can't find my keys. I looked everywhere, you know, and I go and do something else because I didn't have my keys. And then the next day, they're actually right there. So that's happened to me. That's like being in the fourth dimension. The things that are disappearing, she says, is in the fourth dimension. Things like weird things happen. All right, choosing more than one option. So if you have a choice, you know, whether to take a job or not take a job, for example, and you feel like you have to take one of those, she talks about, you know, what if you could, or what if you did choose both choices, right? The minute you choose, you collapse that model. In the quantum field, we talk about that. All the possibilities collapse into the observed one. However, it's likely that other version of yourself are experiencing the other choice, right, as in an alternate reality. So she talks about she's personally experienced more than one version of reality simultaneously expressing opposing choices, and you can too. So this is something that'd be interesting to try out and see if you can actually feel that. So she says, what if you already are choosing both sides of the fork on the road? Perhaps wisdom can be found by realizing the one you chose or you choose to experience is your now. The other choice becomes another version of your reality. All right, so noticing is key to unlocking fifth dimension. Again, we talked about signs. We talked about noticing things. We talked about paying attention to your higher self and allowing that time to really connect. And you don't have to spend hours, you know, I'm not, you know, she doesn't talk about, you know, meditating for hours and hours at a time, but you can start small. You can start with, you know, going to bed and waking up, that little bit of thing. And then, like I have on my phone, alarms that go off every hour for like a minute or 5 minutes. On the iWatch, I think they have ones where it will ask you to, center yourself every hour, just for 1 minute. It has the breathing exercises, which I think are really cool, because you can just center yourself and just allow everything in the past or in the future to just float away, and you center yourself and you connect. Even if it's just for a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever you can do, you're putting energy towards it. You're acknowledging the fact that you want to connect. And the big saying is, ask and you shall receive, right? That's a big belief that I believe in. And every time I've asked for some kind of a sign or a question or an answer, it always comes. Sometimes it comes in a way that I don't understand. And then I ask for clarification, and then it becomes later on, it becomes very clear. Sometimes I realize that I shouldn't know the answers right there and then, that I'm going to discover them, and there was a reason. So it's pretty cool if you start doing that stuff. All right, so let me go through. So you can change the past. So I want to talk, we talked a little bit about it in the beginning. In NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we did some trainings before, and this is timeline therapy. And then I told you guys I just took Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is the past life regression. And in there, and there's other ones. Brian Weiss is another one. Michael, somebody I forgot. But there's different people that do this kind of past life regression where, you go and figure out issues that you had in past life or karmic lessons that you haven't learned and that you're supposed to learn about. And the minute you learn it, all of a sudden the ailments disappear. So she has on her videos and stuff, if you guys are interested, you can look. But people that have walked out with, knees being redone, people that need to have knee replacement surgery, they tap into the collective. They call it the collective or the higher self, and they work on it. They learn the lessons. They go through that process, and it's definitely a different process than the regular hypnosis. And it takes a while. It's not just like hypnosis could be an hour or whatever, but this is a process that takes 3 or 4 hours where you relax, you go through, and the way that she teaches it, you go through 3 or 4 different past lives to make sure that you go through the right ones in order to answer the questions that you have. For example, if you have some kind of an autoimmune disease or whatever, first of all, you want to cure it. That's one thing. Second of all, that you're open to receiving the messages or the lessons from it, because the minute you learn the lessons, then that's when the ailments, the anchor is basically cut, because you learned a lesson, the karma is now paid. So it's really, really, really interesting. There's a whole bunch of people that have different ailments that have been, I hate to say cured, but their ailments seem to disappear. Now, Joe Dispenza does the same thing. He does it with brain frequencies and teaches you to do the pranic connection. So his process is different as well. So there's just different people are going to the same place in different paths. So whatever path that resonates with you, whatever is calling you, you should try. So again, changing the past is really cool. You can do it with hypnosis. You can do it with past life regression. You can do it with NLP, timeline therapy. And the thing is, you may not be aware of the things that are impacting you. So it could be past life, it could be childhood, it could be unconscious things. Again, it's understanding that there's some kind of energy, and that you want to release it. You want to understand what it is and just release it from your energetic environment so that it cleanses you. All right, so moving beyond polarity. So again, you drop the good versus evil, right? The right and the wrong. It's a hard process to go through, but you drop that, you kind of elevate above to the loving, what do we really want for this earth, for our children, for us, for yourself, for your family, whatever it is, you focus on that. and you don't have to worry about how it's going to happen. You just put energy and love and being grateful for the fact that it's now happening, because you have seeded the quantum field with that energy, with that thought. And the more people that we have that are going up to that level versus being here, the more powerful the impact is going to be. And that is what they call the ascension. The people are ascending above and beyond all of this chaos and muck that we're kind of swimming in. All right, so the third dimension is a free will zone. So you'll still have freedom to choose the God-centered choice or not a God-centered choice, right? So she talks about in the fifth dimension, there's no polarity, only love, which translates to the God choice, the God eyes. So the minute you choose to look at things that way, you elevate spiritually and mentally into that level. So there are many choices that you can make to reflect a new love, only energy that no longer requires the existence of karma. So she talks about there's no more, this idea of no more karma is challenging to a lot of people. And, you know, going forward, I think that's why she was talking about, I can't remember if it was her or somebody else, but talks about the earth is kind of going to split into 2 different dimensions. And I don't conceptually understand how that's going to happen, but I can see or feel how that could happen, where there's going to be 2 different realities for people who have ascended, who are more, you know, nurturing the earth, etc., and understanding some of these. So the Akashic records, I think we're going to do a class on that too. That's pretty cool to be able to get into. There's hypnosis, there's meditation for it. I don't know if people have signed up for her free training that she had. There's also, I'll send you guys the link. I'll post it here if any of you are interested in downloading her free meditations and recordings that you can listen to. Just experience it, see how well it works for you. Now, I was drawn to this book. You know, I like the cover of it for those people who are just kind of, it's got the sacred geometry in the middle. But I was drawn to it, and there was a reason for it. So I obviously read it, and then there's my mind map, if you guys can see it. I haven't finished it all yet, but you know, there's some good things that help me stretch my imagination. And then when I asked the questions and I got into Dolores Cannon, you know, and another person that was talking about the multiple dimensions and their past life regression, just different ways of doing it. So my goal right now is to be able to connect at will to the collective or the divine spirit, instead of having to kind of get myself into that mode. And, you know, takes a while for me to get centered and the energy has to be right, etc. So it's that, you know, being able to instantly connect. There are people that are doing it all over the place, that they can just switch into this new frequency. And sometimes it happens to me when I'm not expecting it. But most of the time, you know, if I want to get into that, it's either I have to calm myself down and kind of elevate from the third dimension, if you will, and kind of, you know, however you want to visualize that for yourself, you want to focus on that. All right, let me see. Abandon the how and why, and just wonder why things are going to happen. Again, just putting that question out there and asking for signs. You know, don't ask why or how things are going to happen, but just put it out there and say, I wonder, you know, show me signs how this is going to happen. All right, so I'll get through it. So I have half an hour left. Developing trust. Let's see. Ascension and the 5 dimensions. So I'm just going to go through this really quick. So there's the physical and the emotional, right? If you have physical discomfort, we talked about that. There's a reason for it. So you could go from doctor to doctor and they can't diagnose it, but there's something that you know inside. So that could be something that you might want to look into, maybe past life regression or hypnosis or timeline therapy, or just center yourself and ask the question, what do you need to do in order to clear this for yourself? You might not necessarily need to know what it is, but you can ask and say, what lesson do I need to learn so that I can clear this? So if it is, you know, something that you're feeling in your body, whatever it may be, and only you can do that, right? the hypnosis or the therapist, etc., are going to guide you through that process. So you may need to find someone that can guide you through that process. For example, if it's hypnosis or the quantum healing, etc., whatever that process is, but you need to be open to that. You need to allow your body and allow your mind to expand and open and say, I want to know what it is so I can release it. Why is this? Or, why do I have this ailment here and not there? So there's always reasons why things happen in specific areas. And Dolores Cannon, actually, during her training, she was talking about how like different things mean different things in the past life, which was kind of interesting, which I think I'll go do another session on that. But physical discomfort is, definitely something that you want to look at. Ascension is physical for the first time, right? There's much to be learned and discovered. Many people will experience physical discomfort. So when you're vibrating to a different level, you may be detoxing, right? You may get headaches. You may have to change your environment. You may go through that process of adjusting, and you may feel those physical discomforts. Just like when we're detoxing our body, right? Your body's being overloaded now, so it needs some time to heal. So it may create those symptoms, so you shut down so that your body has time to heal and detox and cleanse itself. It's the same thing with the physical, the vibration. So you may go through that period of headaches or things like that, and then you may feel it afterwards. So emotional, again, you need to understand your emotions and not let them impact you. So she talks about being aware of your emotions. So if you start to feel hurt or angry or nervous or anxiousness, you center into your heart. You'll see a lot of people kind of putting their hands in their heart and even in their gut sometimes, but they'll put their hands in their heart, and they'll just want to give gratitude for having to experience that and not having it stuck, right? You just observe your feelings and then you release it so that it doesn't impact you. So that could be something that you can, practice. So let's see, breakthrough meditation, mystical experiences. So people have obviously had a lot of these mystical experiences through different scenarios. People, everyone's story is different. And I was just telling my daughter about that. You have your own story. You have your own way of connecting to God. You have your own reasons for being here. You have your own lessons to learn. And things that are happening to you creates your own unique story. That could be a lesson or a helpful guide to somebody else that's coming behind you, or even people that are in front of you, right? Older people. But if you're going through that story and you find answers, this is your way of helping others, right? We all go through struggles. Every one of us go through that struggle. That was like the Buddhist thing, right? We're here to kind of suffer and learn from those and pay our karmic, duties. But, when you do that, you learn and you understand the purpose of it, whatever that purpose is, and you share it, right? You understand. I was one that always kept things to myself. I didn't want people to know if I was hurt or if I was dealing with things. But it's when you open up and when you share, that energy circles, right? People are going to connect with you. You're going to attract people that are more on your level. It could be people that have healed from the things that you're dealing with. But the minute you open your heart, the minute you open your mind, you're going to be able to pull those people and resources into your life. So again, it's being about, opening your heart, opening your mind, and opening your spirit, and looking for those signs and resources. All right, so we're going to go through the first dimension is inner focus. It's the self-awareness. So we practice such as toning is so powerful because it fixes everything that's broken at the first dimension. Toning is using the voice to create sound. So she talks about the first dimension there. Second dimension is self and relationships. Let's say allowing. Second dimension is outer focused. Okay. So So that's basically how you're comparing yourself to other people. Third dimension is where we are, time and space, physical, mental, emotional, and etheric bodies, which we're here. And it's mostly based on like cause and effect. So the fourth dimension is the next dimension, which is the vortex energies, the astral plane. It's emotion based and it's higher density. So you may have higher emotional things that you're feeling. It's a whirlwind. It's either pulling you up or feeling you quicksand. So you could feel like one day you're really high, the next day you're really low. So you're going through that fourth dimension. And a lot of people, she says, experience this as they move on to the fifth dimension. And they're trying to figure out, you know, how they're dealing with some of these emotions. And the minute that you step out of it and get to the God level or the fifth dimension, you'll see things differently. So so she has here, I highlighted this, dear God, show me how much I am loved. Help me to find and complete my mission. It's just the one line. You know, you can kind of say that when you're feeling stuck. All right, the fourth dimension is a faster moving. It carries polarity. So polarity, again, we're going with good and evil, right and wrong. You know, you're feeling good or bad or depressed and you know, happy. So again, that's where it's the astral plane. So this is an area where the lower fourth dimensions, so there's the lower fourth dimension and the higher fourth dimension. Again, we're going through that wave thing. So the lower dimensions where there's, you know, negative entities, unsavory energies, right? So you may feel those. Place of emotions and their expressions. Highly creative zone, but still expresses polarity. This is where you can get really, really creative, swinging one way or another. So deep happiness and deep sadness could be found here. So it's escalated emotions. Another marker is disappearing items. So again, this is where things can disappear and appear. We talked about that. Let's see, I understood I could retrieve things by saying. So she says, you know, when I discovered I've been in the fourth dimension, when I set it down, then I ask, I'm sorry, and when I was back in third, the item wasn't visible, right? So once I understood this is when she lost her keys. I could easily retrieve things by saying, if I'm missing items in the fourth dimension, I would like it back. So she kind of talks about that. She had a lot of things disappearing. So fourth dimension also drives motion or emotions. If you're feeling a lot of anxiousness and you need to move yourself to a state of acceptance, right? So if you're anxious about things, you're in that fourth dimension, which means you're getting closer to the fifth dimension, but you need to go through the acceptance part of it. You have to accept yourself and accept others the way that they are, so that you can see them in a different perspective. The fourth dimension is meant to create movement, right? To push you either the higher or the lower part. So you want to go, obviously, the higher. But a lot of times we get sucked back into the third dimension. So that's okay because we're human. It allows you to move into very fluid location that carries with it vibrations in either direction, right? So it says, you know, imagine standing at the base of an escalator. It will not take you higher until you step into it. So unfortunately, you need to go through the fourth dimension in order to get to the fifth dimension. So she just kind of talks about that, you know, elevating yourself and escalating. So the fifth dimension is the tranquil zone, right? You project yourself into a wormhole, which functions something like a combination lock in which all the layers line up. So if you think about this, like the chakras all line up, you know, Joe Dispenza kind of talks about this. You move the energy through and you focus on moving the energy up and out and then also coming back. I don't know if you guys know about that torus, the energy, you know, some of the energy goes this way and then the other energy goes up. So you have energy coming from the divine and you have also energy coming from the earth, and they all kind of spin, and those are the chakras, right? The chakras kind of go spin. So so all the layers line up. When it's your physical, mental, and emotional aspects all line up and match. So again, if you're battling certain things, you're going to see that as you line up, things will start to change. And you can accomplish this in several ways. So so she says, start with a clear intention. So every morning, whatever it is that you want to clear in your life, or clear out of your life, or bring into your life, you set a clear intention. And this is a cool one to say every morning, whatever that may be. Then you work from there. So begin with a visual or an intention that clearly shows the results of being in the 5th dimension in a 3D body. So your first objective is to make sure that there's no conflict between your thoughts and emotions, or with your emotions and your actions. So again, look at what you're saying to yourself, or language patterns. We talk about language patterns in NLP. What are you saying to other people? What are you saying to yourself? The things that nobody else hears. How are you responding to your body? What is your body and your cells hearing about you? What is God hearing about how you're acting and doing? And are you following up with the signs that are being put there for you so that you can go on the right path? So let's see. She talks about if you're low in energy, you can do exercises. Exercises are always good. So she talks about if you have resistance to be released, right? So if there are things that are not releasing you or making you feel a certain way, you need to invite so that you can release these things. So she talks about Qigong. Qigong is spectacular because it builds a lot of chi energy. It builds, it taps into the energy that's around you too. So she talks about Qigong. You can also do this with NLP too. She also talks about keeping a gratitude journal, thanking God for everything, and you'll find that everything is solved easily and dissolved easily. So, putting those things down. Don't get attached to drama. Don't get lost in your emotional experiences. Use them to bridge you to a higher consciousness as they were meant to. Buddhists say your thoughts are not you. Equally, so your emotions are not you. So, imagine not even noticing an insult coming your way, right? So that you don't give that power to somebody else, but you have your own power. So there's some cool ones in there. The nurturing response, again, we talked about, what's going on. Why is this happening? That we don't need to know the why or the how, but just wonder. Relationships, heart leads and the mind follows. So she talks a lot about being in your heart. And the connection between your heart and your brain is what opens this channel. So you need to create this path so that you are vibrating or syncing at the same level. So your thoughts and your heart, your emotions are aligned, and then the connections will open up. So a lot of times people have, they're thinking one thing or doing another thing. They're not feeling the right things, or not, I shouldn't say the right things, but the same vibrational thoughts. The ego rules at 3D. At 5D, the heart loves, and all you care about is comforting someone and not judging them, right? So then she talks about men versus women. Men are very action-oriented. Women are more likely to be speech-oriented. So when a woman needs comforting, the man can reach over and hug her. That's his action, right? When a woman is doing the comforting, she might say, "Are you okay?" Women give grace and men give comfort. So it's just, differences in men and women. And then she talks about relationships and stuff, which I'm not going to get into. But let me go through. I have 20 minutes left. Let's see. Those who hold you back, right? So again, you don't want to give your power to anyone, and your ascension is guaranteed, right? If you focus on it, it will happen. So nobody can hold you back any longer, especially with the earth kind of vibrating at the energy now, that you will have success if you choose to tap into it. You have considerably more power and resources than you even imagine. So again, you have the Akashic records. Once you tap into it, learn to tap into it, you have access to how your body responds to things. Again, learning to understand and connect with your body. The key is your imagination. So, so I'm going to go, this is the fourth, ask for help, right? So again, you always ask and you shall receive. So you want to ask for help, ask for guidance, ask help from your angels, guides, and ascended masters. However you feel comfortable asking for that. Evoke the power of decisions to help you stay in 5D, right? Bring your God energy into everything. So, you know, when I do real estate, when we're working with clients, you know, I like candles. I have things here for my specific clients, and I have an altar upstairs, you know, with different things, family members, etc. So you want to bring love and guidance to everything. And if you start things with God's love or bless it, you know, even the waters, like we're putting water in the glass bottles and we put it in the sun to get energized, and then we bless that water. So that, you know, if we're grabbing and drinking that water, I feel like it's got that energy. So it's the intention, right? Things that you do, you choose to do, whatever it is that you're doing daily, if you put the God's energy to it, blessing can be done with every action. So she says, right? Reading emails, grocery shopping, doing your daily tasks. Decide to bless the action and asking for its highest vibrational expression. You can do this with a simple prayer such as, Dear God, please bless me while I open emails, while I clean the house, while I, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. So she also talks about connecting with the elemental kingdom. This is walking in the nature, you know, connecting with the plants, connecting with earth. And she talks about how nature can communicate with you. So you can sit there and meditate, you know, maybe you'll notice some birds coming by, or you know, butterflies, or whatever it is that, you know, you can look and be grateful for those. Let's see, invite them to help you and always ask for their help and appreciate them out loud whenever you notice the beauty of nature around you. Like working with your dreams. So creating a dream journal. So if you're getting a lot of dreams, you know, we went to Massanutten over the weekend, and just being out in the mountains, you know, we were all having vivid dreams. So it's a very cool effect when you're away from all of the other stuff and you notice some of the changes. Meditation. So one meditation anyone can do is facing the sun meditation, which will provide you with tremendous amount of breath of life. So basically, you know, you face the sun and you do your meditation. So she has that information in here. 44 minutes. So she talks about doing it for 44 minutes. 9 months. So she talks about gaze in the sun just as it rises or before it sets, so that it's not bright. Think of loving thoughts about your life, yourself, your life, the planet, and the sun, and hold this gratitude in your heart. So she says, if you know, once you reach 44 minutes, you're done. So you can just do this for 5 to 10 seconds, and then, you know, however long you can do it. But she talks about that. Sunrise is more potent than sunset. So as far as energy. So she talks about being playful, you know, don't be hard on yourself, connect as much as you can. It's the experience, again, that path. Remember, we talked about the more you walk through that path, the easier that path is going to be, the easier to find. Let's see. I'm going to have to go through a lot of this stuff. Synchronicity, again, those are for signs. Crystal grid, so you can connect with crystals. You can utilize different crystals. I won't go into all of the different crystals, but the sacred geometry, you know, there's a lot of energy and symbols. So she talks about that. Wearing sacred geometry, using it to visualize. All right, let's see. Body confirmation. So other symptoms, some things she talks about is night sweats, waking up just after 3 hours of sleep, strange food carvings, irritability, repeated patterns keep surfacing, feeling space, you're out of it. So she talks about some of those or physical pain, you know. So those are some, obviously some things that you would have to go see the doctor, but you know, like if repeated patterns keep surfacing, that means it's time to do something about it. Seek learning tools that will help you eliminate the holdbacks coming from the past life issues, along with emotional blockages or external energies. We talked about this a little earlier. Irritability, usually this comes from an entity that has taken up residence. Do clearing work or process where you can cast out the unwanted energies or disembodied spirits that do not belong in your body or your environment. So you can do this with, you know, sage, you can do that with singing bowls, etc. So if you have strange food carvings, she says, follow them, they may surprise you. On the other hand, you may develop which aren't your vibration, so you may attract, you know, you may have negative impacts to certain foods, and that would be a lesson for you to stay away from things. See, feeling spacey, yeah. All right, orbs. Some of you may or may not see some orbs, so those are some signs. Again, when you start to notice them, more of them will appear. Keep in mind that the rest is the most important element, so you have to allow your body to rest. You have to get enough sleep, and you have to give yourself enough rest, especially when you're going through these phases. Let's see. So you might be called to be a healer. So she says, sometimes the healers are the ones that must first learn a certain tool to heal themselves. So we talked about that. If you're going through a struggle and you need to heal yourself for something, you may be being called on to be a healer. So you can find your work as a healer or intuitive healer that has been activated so that you can develop your personal version of this healing work for you and the clients. So if you're already in these arenas, you might be accelerated. So you may have progression in those things. So again, we talked about your emotions are the key. We talked about chi. You know, chi is the energy that's around us and in and through us, and it's also around us, and you can tap into that. All of the feelings of rage, anger, disappointment, and fear can be used to manipulate you. So when you maintain your state of compassion, you cannot be manipulated. You cannot be used for fuel in ways that you may not yet understand. So, you know, again, we talked a lot about this. It's they want to influence you one way or another, but just keep focusing on what is it that you really do want above it all. But if you do have certain emotions, you know, she says, always allow your emotions to voice. So you can talk to people that are supportive or understand, just so you can talk about it. Holding back is, again, you're blocking that energy from being expressed or being released. So give up suppressing them. So she talks about sufferings, like move your pain through your heart, flooding it with unconditional love for yourself and others. Your job is not to eliminate the mind, but to integrate the emotions and the intellect and move it all through your heart. So again, it's the threefold flame of love, wisdom, and power. So don't get mad, be happy. So she talks about that. And then she talks about all of the different emotions, and I'm not going to go through it, but the role of guilt. Guilt is another form of judgment, right? It's worse because there's no other observer except you, and it becomes insidious to your thought. The whole purpose of guilt is to inspire you to be different. Unresolved guilt becomes self-judgment. Generally, we don't like to live with self-judgment, so we project it outwards to others. So blaming and whining, you know, the drama business, the TV reality shows and all of that, I mean, we're just, you know, it's everywhere. So allowing and limiting yourself from those. Being bitter, right? And fear. Fear is used to manipulate you, keeps you locked into more fear. Fear is fuel for those who would have you fail. Fear is a messenger, chi loaded with a purpose, intended to keep you safe. Your emotional body creates fear. Fear warns you when something needs to change, either your behavior or your belief. Fear was created as an alarm system to tell you something is not right. It's up to you to heed it. Ascended beings disguised as humans are those among us who are fearless and are meant to help you wake up to your divinity. If you are fearless, you're probably one of the ascended masters in embodiment. One of the fastest ways to dissolve fear is to speak to it directly, asking this question. I can feel the fear. What is the message? Once you know this information, you're able to change your belief or change your behavior. So if you have a fear about something, ask what is the message? What is the purpose of this fear so that you can release it? So I'm just going to read this because I think it might help some people. If you're burdened by your fears all the time, take the time to get to know them. You'll be surprised that they are generally purposeful energy, trying to help you achieve your goals and desires. When fear shows up, ask for its message and then change your belief or your behavior. Okay, so she talks about talking to the fear as a messenger. What is the message, right? Being the fear and the fearlessness. What is needed to release that fear? Let's see. Move from belief to consciousness. We talked about that. Emotional change. The F word of the fifth dimension is flexibility, right? So this again, making sure that you're flexible within yourself. All right, I think if you're already a light worker, so she talks about all of the other things. The language of the fifth dimension. This is one I have to tell you guys. When you use have to, just like I did, you empower anyone who seizes power over you. Okay, deciding you no longer need to say, I have to freeze you. You don't have to pick up your daughter at 4 p.m. You choose to do so. See the difference when you say, I have to, which means there's somebody else that's making you do that you're stuck in a position where you don't have a choice. But when you say, I choose to, it gives you all the power. So everything that you do or choose to do, if you say, I choose to do this, it just makes you feel like you're more powerful. And once you take ownership of your world, you create irrepressible boundary around you. It means that no one can hurt you unless you let him or her in. It means that, so yeah, you're in charge. All right. So avoiding the language that locks you in. I have to versus I choose to was one. On taking offense, no one can insult you without your buy-in, right? So you let people impact you. Choosing to change the way you speak is an important and necessary step. It means that you're consciously choosing thoughts to stay out of judgment and away from polarization. Even statements like, I'll choose the right thing next time imply polarity. So notice that when you decide to say, I choose or I prefer, instead of I can't, I won't, or I should, it invites both you and your listener to acknowledge your true power, which is awesome. I like that. That was one of the things I really enjoyed from this book. We must choose to be mindful of our choices, knowing that when we speak garbage, we will attract garbage. So again, staying out of that. Writing your deepest questions of your heart in your journal. And journals are great. You know, that's just a subconscious way of writing. Even when you notice you're writing, when you're writing certain things, says a lot. All right. Divination tools. Always ask and ask every day. So she kind of talks about that. And then listen, right? That's your way of acknowledging. Integration. So again, integrating it into your daily life. time and space continuum. So we talked about that. You know, you can stretch time. Time is something that we've created, but you can collapse time. You can go back in time, change your past so that it doesn't impact you. So what keeps you locked in time? There are 5 things. Let's see. The first 4 things are coffee in the morning, news in the morning, either via newspaper or television, the weather, and going to work at the same time. The 5th includes the big sports events and the big televised events like the U.S. presidential debates or elections. You can probably think of other things that everyone else does. Right, so that's, again, time things that she talks about. So it talks about 3 ways to unplug. Don't be part of the masses. So again, stop watching the mass media events, especially the ones that cause a lot of polarity and emotions. Put your attention into something you subscribe energetically with your emotional energy. So there's, I don't know if you guys have seen, you know, there's meditation, global meditation. Now people are choosing to do that at the same time, specific dates, with specific prayers. Those are really great. Okay, so it talks about that, a lot of stuff, stepping out of time. So she talks about what is time. There's a lot of good, you know, prayers and stuff in this book. So if you guys haven't bought it, it might be a good one for you guys to look at it. Multidimensional stuff. I have the power of God. So it has a lot of good mantras and prayers. Let me see. Finding your 5th dimension way. Your intention is paramount. So you have to have the intention and ask for assistance in becoming 5th dimensional. And she recommends you ask every day. It means you love yourself anyway, imperfections and all. It means you're willing to change. It means you don't need to defend. Instead, you decide to learn from your critics and that you are finished with lying and all the shades of gray. Doing this also reinforces your unconditional love and commitment to yourself. All right. So again, it's the language, place of just noticing, allowing things to go through your heart and not be stuck. Ask your inner guidance. This is the teacher that you can trust. Any teacher who teaches you to follow them and then expects you to only follow them is still an ego and is not trustworthy. So you'll see, you know, this is the only way you can do things, or this is the way I want you to do it. I don't want you to change it or whatever. So those are the things that you need to be aware of. So does this work for me? These are questions you can ask. Does this work for me? Is this in my highest and best good? Is this truth I seek? There can be highly acclaimed teacher who will falsely teach you. Your responsibility is to discern the difference and honor your inner wisdom. So you always ask yourself, you know, if somebody's teaching you something or pushing you into something or says that they believe in something, you will know instantly, I think, from your heart when you ask yourself. So it talks about your guardians, other versions of you, which is the same soul, but different versions of you. So that was one that we talked about, which really stretched me from this. So I put, you know, more Aydas out there. Your soul can occupy 2 bodies. What else do you believe that may not be true? It's time to expand your concept of reality. Again, like we were talking about, you know, stretching your mind and things that you don't really think about. Okay, so then she talks about people that she's met where there's different versions of the same person. So both male and energies in every person. So it talks about how we have both feminine and male. Obviously, that's the yin and yang. So she talks about the Mayans, recognizing the higher dimensions. So she talks about the 13 different dimensions. And obviously, they're going through, you know, the lower realms and the higher realms of each one and how you move through the different things. Let your ego mind allow your multidimensional possibilities come through. It's like the Russian doll. The dimensions are vibrationally nested like Russian dolls. This means you may still interact with your family who may be in the third dimension only because at any level you have access to experience the lower levels. So just because you're at a higher level doesn't mean you can't experience it. So the sixth dimension is the place where we often go during dream time. It's the place that has structure and form if we desire it, but doesn't require it. It's the place of all templates for basic structures on Earth, such as DNA, geometry, light language, that form the basis for developed expression and experiences in the third dimension. Seventh dimension is coming directly from the source, yet it carries the material aspect of precision. So you feel such emotional connection with consciousness as expressed through souls similar to you that manifest in groups that come easily. Limitless of consciousness in previous, so eighth dimension. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'll make a summary of it. So you basically go through, and she has like this table. If anybody's interested, I can post some of that up there. But if you're interested on it, if you're familiar with the 13 dimensions, she goes through the same thing. Let's see, dimensional shifts, tuning in, hearing the tone, so you can use toning. You know, you can do your own toning. You can use singing bowls, etc. You can also do light. And if you are of the light, I invite you into my space to be of service to me and those around me. Doing this turns your wisdom channel in the moment. So you can actually pull into light energy. Becoming fifth dimensional, activating the higher chakras. Again, we talked about this, where you align your heart and your mind, and then the energy flows through, and you're in sync. It's like the tuning fork, right? Your heart is feeling what your mind is thinking, that kind of thing. The pineal gland activation, that's the third eye chakra. Edgar Cayce said, keep the pineal gland operating and you won't grow old. You'll always be young. So she talks about how you can activate your pineal gland. And my daughter and I are actually going to Peru. We're going to do the shamanic ayahuasca, where this pineal gland is supposed to explode and open up. But other ways that you can do it is avoid fluorinated water, avoid wheat, gluten, and sugar. Clear heavy metals, mercury, aluminum, and other toxins out of your water and detox your body of these metals. Meditate daily and eat organic, as much raw food as you can, and exercise. So again, that's the cleansing, that's getting your mind and your body in tune. Get sun exposure. So check out the alternative health expert Joseph Marcola's website to learn more about vitamin D and sun exposure. And the TED Talks about sun exposure. So how we need it. But now we're being told, you need SPF 50, even the makeups and everything else that we have is blocking the sun. But we need sun. Everything on Earth needs sun. Sleep regularly. Many have overlooked the very important detail about sleep. Again, we talked about the organ clock and how important it is for your body to shut down at certain hours so that your organs can rejuvenate. So if you're dealing with ailments, you really need to force yourself to be able to shut down so that your body has that time to heal. So connecting to God, this is the Kundalini awakening. She doesn't really talk about this, but Joe Dispenza has that Kundalini awakening exercise, which is awesome. And rivers of energy flowing in your pranic tube has greatly increased. One of the most magical opportunities is to begin recognizing that you're broadcasting your energy daily. So that's a pretty cool, you can just visualize that, even if you're driving or you're stuck in a red light, just visualize that energy. The more energy and thought you give it, the more you're going to feel it. And you can even, physically do it. All right, so just, she talks about the different chakras. I'm sure you guys probably know about all of that. And then she has different meditations. So I will put the link to the bonus stuff, and you guys can download it. The last thing is meeting your dragons and serendipities. So this is, dragons are to see clearly and with clarity. So dragon comes from the root word meaning to see clearly. So there are multidimensional beings or spirits that they've assigned them as dragons. They're able to shift dimensionally as well as help maintain higher vibrations of third dimension to fifth dimensions. They have returned to assist the humankind with ascension. So you can say that they're dragons, or you can give them different names. So you can call in your dragons to help you optimizing your dragons. Different dragon energies, so it talks about that. So it's just saying that they're around if you want to tap into it. So what's next? It talks about moving beyond polarity. Are you in? So if you're here, you're listening to it, obviously you're on that ascension ladder that you're looking for, that you're already feeling it, you're feeling the pull, the wake-up call. So there's nobody that can teach you how to connect. It's going to be your personal experience. And there are different ways that people will connect. We'll do different sessions and people will experience things in different ways. But when you ask your higher self, they will guide you in the right direction. Whatever teachers and instructors that you have will pop up in your environment, or as a sign in your life. So I suggest you follow through with that. Whatever, if it is a book that falls, if it's a training, etc., follow through and see where it leads you, and be grateful and acknowledge the fact that you've noticed that as a sign. And the more you do that, the more you're going to connect with your higher self, the spirit self. All right, let's see. I think that's it. Encouraging messages of light. So will there be, and then she talks about, the earth is, I think it's this one here, but I am going to put the link in the chat and you guys can copy it and link and download. And it would be great if you guys did buy the book. Germaine.com. I did do her free training as well. She just did on Akashic Records. So let me just make sure that it's working. So all of you have your mics enabled. If you want to give any feedback, what did you guys think of it? I know I went through it a lot, and I don't know if any of you have actually read it. I know the 4 or 5 people that were on earlier did not. But so this is the author, and these are all the things that you can download. Recordings. And you can register for her stuff. So, but it's very cool to listen to some of this stuff. All right, good to encourage others to ask for answers like you do in a way that works for them. Yes, you're at 8:35. Yes, so I'm running way over. I apologize, but I hope you guys got something from it and that you enjoyed it. If you enjoy it, grab one of these and read for yourself, because this is my kind of interpretation from it. There are different things that impacted me and stretched me in a specific way, and it will probably do the same to you. Whatever messages, if it's calling you, go ahead and do it. We're going to look at another book that we're going to review, and hopefully I'll be able to finish my mind map on this. But there are some very good things, even if it is 1 or 2 things that will change the way you look at things, or the way you can stretch your mind, is what I was saying earlier. It's worth it, because through all of this, I believe she's definitely a messenger, and a teacher, and an ascension master that has put together books and trainings, etc. So you can see if you resonate with her and with her message. So do you guys have any questions? I did put the link in the chat. It's MaureenSaintGermain.com/5D bonus. So you guys can download the information. So I have one question. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's all I have. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, you can always text me or contact me. And I hope you benefited from it. Do you guys have any questions? All right. I hope you guys have a great night and hope to see you in our next meetup. Thanks and have a great night.